This interview is just one in a series of discussions with the Council's 30 artists in residence from September 2006 through May 2007. For more interviews, information on the Workspace program and the artists and writers, please visit lmcc.net/residency. I'm Perry Garvin, Digital Projects Manager at the Council, and I'm here talking with Rosanna about her work and about her studio, and nice to talk to you.
Thank you.
So
That's great.
Let me just first start out by having you talk a little bit about your background, where you're from, and when you started making art, when you first started considering yourself an artist.
Well, I am originally from Puerto Rico, although my mom is from Spain, my father is from Puerto Rico, so I always have two places that I feel that I always belong. I came to New York to do my master's degree at Pratt Institute in Brooklyn, and finished my MFA in sculpture and printmaking. Decided to stay in New York and been making work and working full-time at different places. First Pratt Institute, now I work at NYU, just trying to balance my life between making money and making art.
So how would you define or describe sort of your aesthetic? If somebody were to be, we're in your studio right now, and if somebody were to walk in and not necessarily look at specific works, but get a general sense of what you're doing, how would you describe it?
I think the first thing that I always think about my work is playful. I definitely approach the work in a very systematic way, like it's very reductive, very simple in a way, like visually I always feel that I do simple, like I put out like simple thoughts that they take me a long time to come up to that simple thought, although they look like if they were made in 5 minutes, but it really is a process of, a concept that I just work on it, think about it, and then visually come up with a very minimal and reductive aesthetic.
So when you say playful, does that mean that comes out of a spirit of experimentation and sort of what you would define as play, or are there certain qualities about the work itself that would reference play? Or
I think we probably talked about this before. I think the use of color in my work, I find that is definitely playful. It's just part of me, who I am, my background, I guess. Playful in a way that, I guess, the way I want the viewer to interact with the work. Like all the works have some sort of narrative, and I think the titles give you that.
Looking around your studio now, there's several different works. There's this pink sheet of paper with two threads, or two right-angled threads. There's this work you just talked about with the orange circle flattened against a wall with two seats. Then looking behind me, there's two sponges together. There's a capsule that's split in half. There are pairs of shoelaces hanging down. There are two chairs. So there are lots of twos.
Yes.
So can you talk a bit about that?
Sure. When I started making these pairs, I think I was thinking about dialogue. Like, I think I've been living in New York City for a while now, and I think after a while you start realizing how little interaction sometimes you have with people, and I think I'm definitely thinking about these things, even though I interact with a ton of people every day through my work and through art and everything, but that has become something important in my life, I think, just to be able to communicate with others. And through art, I've been trying to do that just by including other artists in my work, like collaborating with other artists in my work. When I make objects, like you were mentioning, around my studio, even though I'm the only one that makes them, but I just find things like they're just sponges and shoelaces and just like everyday objects that, again, anybody can recognize. But is the idea of putting these two things together where the idea of the sponge changes and you are seeing it as two things becoming one in a way.
I really liked this, these columns that you had painted. Can you talk a bit about, just describe them, and I liked what you told me in the past.
Sure. That installation was in Pennsylvania, and this is the town is called Kutztown, and that's where Keith Haring was born. And the space is a not-for-profit space that has a huge floor mural by Keith Haring. I think he did that when the space was not even divided as a gallery or anything like that. So it takes the whole space. And the space has 4 columns, 2 in the front room and 2 in the back room, which is like an artist studio for residencies. And I decided just to paint the columns in 2 colors, green and blue. And the colors that I chose are from when I was traveling to Pennsylvania, which I did many times. You're traveling so fast in the bus that all that you see is like green and blue, really. And I decided to do that just to bring kind of like the landscape into the gallery. And what was really interesting for me was to see how the viewers or the public came into the gallery and they were waiting or expecting to see something on the wall. And the first reaction was to really kind of like look around to see if they could figure it out. And then when they finally saw what I've done, I think they were very pleased to connect the 2 columns in the front and the 2 columns in the back, because it created like an invisible horizon that you had to, each person had to kind of connect the front and the back of the space.
And let's talk about the residency. You're here from October 2000. Well, it's December 2006 right now, and you've been in residency since October, and the residency ends in May 2007, and there's an open studios in April 2007 or May 2007. One of the two. April.
I think.
So, maybe just briefly, like, what has your experience been working in a studio downtown and working in an office building, and what do you see yourself? Are you are there any projects you're working on right now, or are you just coming in here and playing around? What do you? My idea is to bring more artists to come to my studio and think together and talk and have a dialogue and communicate. I would probably make more of these dual pieces. And then since I started last year kind of like incorporating performance elements into the work, I will try to work on some of those too. But it's been amazing. It's really great. Well, Rosanna, thank you for talking with me today. It's been a pleasure.
Well, thank you.